Hey girls, welcome to another episode of High Energy Girl. And today I'm super excited to have Kim Riley on the show. She offers so many value bombs to help improve your relationships and especially the relationship with yourself. So Kim is a life coach and she is working with people on improving their relationships. So let's go say hi to Kim. Welcome to High Energy Girl, a podcast helping women to age stronger because it is never too late to get fit, be strong, and feel sexy. I'm your host, Tracy Gluheich, health coach and personal trainer and founder of highenergygirl.com. Each week, we will either have a guest interview, which will provide you an actionable tip to help you age stronger, or I will do a solo episode that we will have a fun challenge for the month. Please also join our Facebook group, High Energy Girls. Looking forward to seeing you on the inside. Hope you enjoy the show. Hey beautiful, my name is Tracy and I'm a health coach and personal trainer and founder of highenergygirl.com. My passion is to help women become high energy, fat burning phenoms without starving to death and spending hours in the gym. So are you exhausted from the crazy holidays and maybe feeling a little bit of fluffy? Well, guess what? You are in luck because I put together a high energy transformation guide and it is completely free. And it's going to help you boost your energy, banish brain fog, build a little muscle, and burn off that belly fat. Okay, so here's what is in the guide. First off, it starts with mindset, because let's face it, your body can do it. It's your mind you have to convince. Next, we have food. There are 3 phases of the food plan to help you heal your body and create a fat-burning machine. It is awesome, trust me. Also, fitness. We have components for both the home and the gym, beginning, intermediate, and advanced, because if you want to age stronger, then you need to move. And lastly, and most important, is self-care, because let's face it, we women are so crazy busy taking care of everybody else, our homes, our jobs, our families, that we don't take time for ourselves. And even on the airplane, the flight attendant says to put your oxygen mask on first. So grab this free guide, 21 days, high energy transformation. Just click on the link below and that will show up in your inbox right away. Hey Kim, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me on the show.
Well, I love learning and hearing from experts in all the different industries. And so why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about you?
Okay. First, just to be simple about it, I live in Denver, Colorado, and I love living here. I grew up here. I was gone for about 10 years for college, lived overseas for a bit, and then went to graduate school in Michigan and then came back to Colorado. So I've lived here most of my life and I love it here, even though it's freezing at 10 degrees today with snow coming down. But anyway, I'm an outdoorsy person and I grew up in the outdoors doing a lot of activity that I still do. So that's something about me and what I enjoy doing on my free time. Do you want to know something about professionally what I'm about or about myself?
Yeah, professionally, I want to hear really about the wisdom that you would, share with people. So however we can get to that point would be perfect.
Okay. Professionally, I'm going in the last few years, I've been going in a different direction. So about 30 years ago, I got my degree, a master's degree in public health, in behavioral health education. And I've worked in those throughout the years and still do on a small level, meaning not many hours a week. But I've always worked in lifestyle management and helping people live healthier lives. I worked at a clinic for a while, and there I worked with people who have diabetes and talked a lot about self-management and what people can do outside of the doctor's office, right? They go to the doctor's office for their insulin or whatever the medication is that they're on, but in their lives, they have to live a lifestyle. They have a lifestyle that's either healthy or not. And so I worked with clients at the clinic, a lot of whom were Spanish speaking. I speak Spanish and I love to work with Spanish speaking families. But I worked a lot with them on what they could do for healthier eating and more active living. And so that's been my focus and my interest in public health over the years. But in the last few years, I became intrigued with health and life coaching as a new direction to go in. Over the years working in health education, I've been frustrated not really believing that how I was interacting with clients and families was very effective. It's hard for people to make behavior changes. And I've always, I've continued to ask myself, what is that? What's that about? How does health behavior change or any behavior change really come about? So I started to get intrigued by life coaching and following some different mentors in that area, and decided to get my certification in life coaching and focus within that broad field in relationship coaching. Because what I found in my training was that I found more of an answer of what brings about behavior change. And I think it really comes down to, when we peel away all the layers of the onion, so to speak, in our lives, that it comes down to a feeling of worthiness, whether we feel worthy of love, worthy of belonging, worthy of attention from ourselves, from other people, and that there are a lot of stories we create in our lives, making events that happen to us mean certain things that can take us down a route that's not very healthy or productive for us. So life coaching really, for me anyway, has helped answer that question of what brings about behavior change. And I really think it does help to get down to the bottom of it. Like, really, how are people, whether they feel worthy or not in their lives, and building on their strengths and helping them feel more worthy. And then they can make all kinds of behavior changes that they want to make.
Because they feel like they deserve it.
Exactly. They feel like they deserve it. They feel like, I specifically work with midlife women in their intimate partnerships. But part of the focus for me, the reason I'm working with midlife women is because I'm in that life stage myself, but also because, we've lived decades of time where we haven't felt worthy. We haven't felt we deserved it. And we're literally coming into the last, for lucky 20 years, right? Maybe 30 years of our lives. Our lives are getting shorter.
I know.
And so midlife is a time, it's like, if not now, when? There's so much that we can develop and so much wisdom we have just living life for 50, 40, 50, 60 years that we can take and really build our worthiness and love the life that we can live for the last 20 years.
Yeah. And what do you find to be a common thread in a lot of the women that you work with?
I think, when it comes to relationships specifically and intimate partnerships, I think this can be true of any relationships we have. But with our intimate partnerships, I think what I find a common thread, and it makes sense to me, is that we blame. We do a lot of blaming, of our partners. If he or she would just do this, or just act this way, or would just meet my needs in this way, we would be happy. I would be happy. I wouldn't have to leave. We wouldn't have to get divorced. There's a lot of blame. And even though I understand all of that, because I blame myself, I blame in my relationship. I've been married for not quite 30 years. There's a lot of blaming of him. But every time that there's that blame, I really help women look at what role they play in that and what their responsibility is for the relationship, and how even they alone can make some, by the way they act and believe with their partners, can make some shifts in the relationship for the better.
So you brought up an interesting point. So one of, like, I'm a big quote person, and one quote that I love is, "You alone are responsible for everything you do, everything you don't do, and every way you respond to what is done to you."
Yeah.
Which kind of jives with what you just said as far as the blame game.
Yeah, no, and especially that last, I love that quote, and I'm a quote junkie as well. But especially that last part of the quote of responding, I don't know how you worded it, but that we're responsible for how we respond.
Yeah.
I think that's critical. And when I work with women, we talk a lot about that. What the difference is between reacting and responding.
Mm-hmm.
That reacting is kind of a gut level, a gut level response to something that triggers us in a negative way, and we just have this gut level reaction, right, of blame of our partner, anger, frustration, sadness. This gut level, what I consider more not very self-aware reaction, different from response. And I think response is that self-awareness. We're triggered by something, we stop, we can recognize the trigger, the story we have about it, and then decide what response we want to have.
So it's taking a time, right?
Yeah, taking a time. It's interesting because I'm in a Toastmasters group, and one speech I have that I just last week was in a contest at my club level and won the contest. So I move on to the area level, and we'll see what that brings me. But the topic of the speech is how we react to triggers, or how we can respond instead of that gut reaction. And it's taking the time, and what allows us to take that time is when we're triggered by something to stop in that moment and feel the physical sensation in our body, that physical physical effect, whether it's sweaty palms, your heart really pounding, your blood rushing your face rushing with blood, or whatever that is, sensing that. And in that moment that we're sensing, then our thoughts, our story, what we make that event, that trigger mean, dissipates. And when that dissipates, we can then choose a response that we won't regret, right? That we won't think, oh my gosh, I didn't mean to say it, I didn't mean to come out that way. Yeah. So it's all about response.
And I think that's so true, because I think that even just in a general conversation, people are thinking about what they want to say next instead of pausing and then responding to what was said without like that knee-jerk reaction. Like, you got to like be fully engaged. My Chinese medicine doctor, who I just adore, that he works with me a lot, he says that it's just about being present in like our life instead of just stuck in our head. Yeah.
And that's another, it's good that I like it that you mentioned that, the presence, because that's a part of all of this. So again, when I work with women, there is a big part of my teaching that is around presence and how to presence ourselves more and be mindful, and activities and strategies we can work on that help us be mindful in the moment. So that when we're triggered, we can respond, because it requires a mindfulness. It requires a consciousness and awareness.
So what would that look like exactly? Like, what could somebody apply today to their like relationship with their spouse or significant other, or, the important relationship in their life? Is there some sort of a tool that you can share so that they can, try it out right away? Yeah,
there are a lot of different tools I use, and the coaching is kind of fun because there's we'll go through some visualization and imagination, and that's all fun and takes more time and some guided practice. But I guess one um, one really quick and easy thing to do to help somebody become more present, is to practice presencing even outside of a conversation with your partner. So I learned this from one of the great teachers, I think, of presencing, Eckhart Tolle, who's a German, I don't know if he's a philosopher or what, but he's written a couple of amazing books, The Power of Now and I'm Going Now Through the New Earth. But anyway, he talks about presencing. And one suggestion he has is that when you're out walking, you're just out in your world, right, walking around, to take an extra couple seconds to look at things that you're passing by, like the tree on the street, or the house in the street, or the flowers in somebody's garden. But just looking at those flowers and keeping your eyes trained on those flowers for just like 2 or 3 seconds, like to be very purposeful about looking at what's right in front of you, visually looking at something. And then just taking those couple extra seconds helps us get present and stay present. So that's just a simple, I do that when I'm out walking my dog every day.
Yeah.
Like I want to be present. So what can I look at? And just look at it for an extra 2 or 3 seconds before I divert my attention and go on.
Yeah, that's good, because we're surrounded by beauty in so many places, and we can find it. Like my son lives in New York City, and it's kind of gross there, but there are really cool things. So my son, what he does is he'll take a picture and post on Instagram of random things that he will find in the city that are just like really cool,
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's an amazing, I don't know what, byproduct or side effect of this presencing exercise, to really train your eye on something for a couple seconds longer than you would naturally. Because what it does is it helps you see things that you just didn't see. So before, that are kind of cool. Like you said, with your son taking photos of whatever in New York City. I can imagine. I've been to New York City a couple times, but I can imagine that there are so many cool little things that if you didn't stop and look, you would never see. So yeah, that's a great thing. You start noticing things that you would have walked by.
Right. And we're surrounded by cool things like that if we would just get out of our head,
Yeah.
So what is your favorite? Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say there's another exercise that I think is really quick and easy to do. And again, this is what there's a lot of different exercises, but this is what my 5-minute Toastmaster speech is about. Is when that people can do, very practical. When you notice that you're triggered by something, in that moment, and I already described this some, but in that moment, to stop and feel what it is in your body that you're feeling, the sensation in your body. Because if you take that, so it's a good way to keep yourself from reacting knee-jerk right away. Just like, boom, triggered. Okay, what am I sensing in my body? What do I feel? What am I sensing? And that gives you that little bit of space where then you can choose a response that is more productive or healthier. And in the face of an argument, for instance, with a partner, it could be, I get triggered, stop for a minute, sense what I'm feeling physically in my body, and then be able to utter a response, something to the effect of, this is something we could talk about, but I want to can we talk about this later tonight? Or can we talk about this next Thursday night when we have what I call our executive meeting, which is that time that we've scheduled to talk about what we're concerned about or issues we're having. But you can have a response that's not an immediate.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Fight back, blame back. that gets you out of that immediate, knee-jerk reaction that you could utter.
So what do you see as, what is that executive meeting that you just said? Like, what does that look like exactly?
The term for that I love. Another term for it is state of the union. So some of my couple of my mentors, I follow a lot of different teachers, relationship therapists, and others. But specifically in my training, those two words are used. And basically, what the executive meeting is, or that state of the union time, is with your partner. You set a time of the week, once a week is what I recommend, once a week. And it can be just for a few minutes, or maybe it ends up being a half an hour. Although I tell people when they first do this to really make it just a few minutes, where each partner takes turns, like 3 minutes each. So for 3 minutes, one partner says, so you set this time for Tuesday nights, when you both come home from work, after dinner, okay, executive meeting. So you have 3 minutes, one partner, where he or she talks about complaints that they have, or issues that they have about the relationship that concern them, or things that may have happened this week that were triggering. And then the other person listened to that. And then the other person takes his or her turn to do the same thing. What's key in this executive meeting is that the person who's listening to the 3 minutes of their partner is really listening. So they can't speak during those 3 minutes, and to the best of their ability, not judge what the partner is saying. That's hard to do, and we work on ways to be less judgmental, including, for instance, thinking of, having this vision in your head, this kind of your higher intention for your relationship. So there's your partner, there's you, but there's this higher intention for your relationship. What do you want? What's our bigger picture of relationship together?
Oh, I love that.
But anyway, there's various different ways to work with the partners to help them not be as judgmental. But the executive meeting time is a very specific, it's scheduled time where complaint happens then. And that's where you find out from your partner how the state of the union is, right? Like how the state of our partnership is going. And then the rest of the week, there's not that. Like, that's not the time. It's like when one partner starts to complain, it's like, great, put that on your list for Tuesday night's State of the Union talk.
That is awesome. And then how long is it? It's only 6 minutes?
Yeah, it's hard because to keep it to that time, because my husband and I, for instance, did this last night, and we talked probably for about a half an hour. So no, it doesn't always stay to 3 minutes each. But I think the idea, at least of starting out that way, is that it really does limit it so that neither partner starts going down this rabbit hole of complaint after complaint after complaint after complaint, which turns into, you're like this, you always, those kinds of statements. It helps limit that. Yeah. And just keeps the area and keeps it brief, because I think that too could be what can overwhelm people. It's like, what does this mean? Every Tuesday night I've got to spend 3 hours talking to my partner. Well, we just don't have that time because we've got the kids, or we've got, this going on or whatever. So it's just a way to start on a very small scale.
Okay, I love it. I'm going to start doing that. It's funny, we just had our anniversary, 29 years, kind of similar to you. And we go out to dinner, and I'm like, okay, let's talk about hopes and dreams tonight, And it was so funny because they were so different. He only talked about work and landscaping our backyard. And I'm talking about, well, next year at this time, because we're like, okay, future forecast, a year from now. I'm like, well, it's going to be on the sand with an ocean and sunshine. And he's like, what? Like, oh yeah, we need to get on the same page, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would one thing I recommend is, I mean, it's great to go out to dinner, and I almost think that like that date night out or that dinner night out is something different than the executive meeting / State of the Union meeting, because I think that the executive meeting is a place where you really are talking about those complaints and what's not going so well in the relationship. And this is a common thing too, and maybe, I'm certainly not the only one who preaches this, but the how you issue your complaint is really important. To the extent that a partner can use I words and how they feel. So, for example, I felt hurt the other night when you came home late because it didn't, I felt neglected. It makes me think that other things are more important to you than I am, or something like that. But to the extent we can issue our complaints, talk about our complaints from the I perspective of I felt this way, versus, here's my list of complaints. You showed up late this day. You did this, you did this, you did this, or said this, because that's more apt, obviously, to get a judgmental, defensive response in return.
Yeah.
But anyway, I keep the executive meeting as something separate from date night out or dinner night out, because I think dinner night out can be more like what you're talking about. Like, let's talk about our dreams for the future, where we want to go, what we want to do in a year. I think when we can keep our dinners out, be a special time for that, for the positive things and, what we want to do together and be together. And this is a celebration night, more or less, rather than a complaint night.
Yeah. And we never go out to dinner. Like, our date night that we have is usually going to get a massage.
Yeah, well, that's a good one.
Yeah, that's like what we like to do. But it was our anniversary. It was a Sunday night. I'm like, we never go out to dinner. Let's just go out to dinner for a change. So, but I like the idea of an executive meeting. That would actually be something my husband would be all over. So that's a great idea.
Yeah, it just confines that complaining defense. It confines it to something, to a specific time that is set up for that. Like, that's its purpose, is to air those concerns. That's its purpose, so that those concerns and all those issues are less likely to happen, are less likely to leak out into the rest of your week, because you have that set time that you're to do that.
Yeah.
And not other. So. Okay,
I love it. I'm going to start implementing that. My husband will be all over it. And he doesn't have karate Tuesday night, so Tuesday night's a perfect night for it, too. When's your anniversary?
Mid-July. Midsummer, hot summer.
It'll be 29 years?
It'll be 30 this July. July 15th.
So you're ahead of us. What are you guys doing for your anniversary? Anything great?
This year we haven't decided, and I actually am just thinking now that it is number 30. So I don't know. I guess we better do something special. What we usually do, and I was just thinking of this the other night, that this has fallen off a little bit, and I really want to institute it again. What we've done, what we did for the first 20 years, was every year on our anniversary, it's midsummer. We're big outdoor enthusiasts, like I already said. My husband is too. We go on a bike ride. We mountain bike a lot in Colorado. So we go on a mountain bike ride. And what we used to do for 20 years is take at our wedding ceremony, we have two pewter, I don't know if they weren't pewter, I don't know, metal champagne flutes. And at our wedding, in the wedding ceremony itself, we did a little ritual where we recited our vows to each other, and then we had some flowers and we threw them in the stream. We got married outside in Lake Tahoe. And for 20 years, wherever we were mountain biking, we would bring the wine glasses, and maybe we'd drink our water, right, or whatever's in our backpacks, but we would pick a flower and throw it into the stream after saying our vows.
Aww.
And I think, and so we've stopped the vows, that little ritual, we've stopped that. We still go biking, which is great, or something else. But doing that, like, again, that's just another very deliberate, like a ritual of, that connection ritual, and going back 30 years ago to the day where we said those vows for the first time. And our vows are short. We made them up. They're very similar to each other. And we say the exact words we said on wedding day.
Oh, that is so sweet.
Yeah.
That is, we mountain bike too. We live right across the street from, I don't do it very often because I like to do my workout like at 5:30 in the morning, but my husband, he goes out and he mountain bikes almost every day when he can,
Oh, yeah.
weather permitting.
Yeah, sure.
So
anyway, that ritual, bringing back some bit of ritual because again, with midlife, I think especially, and it can happen at any time, but if we've been lucky to have a long-term partner, I mean, that first, that honeymoon stage or whatever, however long that lasted, which is 2 months to 8 months if you're lucky. It's been a long time since that point. Yeah. So if we can bring that back, if we can bring back that same feeling, that connection that we had on that very first day or at some point during that honeymoon stage, if we can bring that back, yearly, it makes a huge difference. It has a huge impact.
Yeah. I need to come think of a ritual. So that's a really good word of advice too for the audience, is to come up with a acknowledging ritual. We brought out our wedding book, like our wedding album, and looked at the pictures, and our video is on a VHS, so we can't play that anymore.
Yeah, right. So is ours.
We used to have it, we used to play it every year and look at it, but looking at, having your little anniversary ritual, I think that's a great idea. So that's cool.
It can be on anniversary or some other day. I don't know. Or maybe, whatever it is. I just think it has a positive impact that we don't think it would necessarily have. And it doesn't have to be some big, huge ritual. It can be something really simple.
Yeah. That's
and
cool.
It just keeps that connection alive, or brings it back if it's been lost.
And that happens more often than not, right?
Right.
I look around me and I'm just like, oh my goodness. I feel so fortunate that, I don't know, we have what we have. So,
right.
So Kim, what other words of wisdom do you want to leave the listeners with? Do you have anything else to add? I know you've already offered a lot, so.
I mean, I guess I have just general, words of advice, not specific exercise or whatever, like the couple I talked about, but just advice. One book, and I love to read all these different personal development books, and I have 1,000 on my shelves, but one that I love and I think about all the time, and is very simple to read, is called The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz.
Uh-huh.
And the first agreement, so there's 4 different agreements he talks about. And he's a shaman, a Toltec shaman from Mexico, or of that tradition. And the first agreement is don't take things personally. And I think about that all the time, like all the time. Don't take what others say or do to you personally. It's this idea that it's not your fault. Like, there's so much that's not our fault that we internalize and think is our fault. Mm-hmm. So I guess that's probably one general thing, is to not take things personally. And then the second thing I would say that's really critically important too, and I think of all the time, especially if I'm in difficult relationships or point in a relationship with either my husband or anybody else in my life, is just believing and knowing that people are doing the best they can. They're doing the best they can in life. And they're doing the best they can with the resources the skills and the capacities they have. Because when we believe this, that's what allows us to have compassion.
Mm-hmm.
And I think compassion is critical. When we have compassion, that's what allows us to truly live in a place, in a mental space of acceptance, and peace.
Yeah.
So I think the idea is to just know that everybody out there is doing the best they can with what they've got. So if somebody is abusive, if somebody's, physically abusive of somebody, or they're abusing substances or anything, those are all avoidance behaviors, ways to protect themselves, that even in the midst of all of that, they're doing the best they can. They're doing the best that they know how. So I think that's the second thing, just realizing that people are doing the best they can. And they may not always be engaging in great behaviors, but they're really, truly doing the best they can.
Yeah, nobody sets off out the day with the intention of, boy, I'm going to really go try to screw somebody over.
Right. There is that, right? There are people, but even that of like suicide bombers or whatever. That's some of the extreme, right? The terrorism and the extreme of that. But even that, I even believe that down underneath, again, people who are engaging in that way are still doing the best they can. There's fear, there's something they're scared of, and they are trying to protect themselves in some way. So, yeah.
That's an interesting perspective. I never thought about that.
It's hard. It's hard. And I will say, I haven't experienced in my life, somebody I love having been killed or really hurt severely by somebody else. And could I have compassion for that perpetrator? It would be hard. Obviously it'd be a test beyond what I've experienced. And there could be people, maybe some of the listeners going like, you have no idea because you haven't experienced this. And I will be the first to admit that I really don't. But there's still, I still hold on to this belief that people are doing the best they can.
Yeah, I got to check out that book. It sounds really interesting. So I have 2 more questions for you. So tell me, first off, your training, your life coach certification, who is that through?
It's through a couple places. The certification itself is through an institute called the Center for Strategic Intervention. Oh. So it's run by a couple, a husband and wife couple, who have done a lot of work with the Robbins Madonna's Training Center. So it's based on the approach that Anthony Robbins uses in his work. He's one of the big, life strategists and business strategists out there. And I love the work. I love the work of strategic intervention. I think it's fascinating. And when I started to look into life coaching, I watched a lot of Tony Robbins videos. And I know there's controversy there of, how he's handled situations not very productively or whatever, but I still really believe in that approach. So anyway, my training's through the Center for Strategic Intervention. It's a specific type of life coaching.
So I've heard of them, and did you come to California?
I did come to California. They are based out of there. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I know who they are. And we're big fans of Tony Robbins.
Oh, okay.
So my husband's walked on coals and all that stuff. I'm like, not me.
Okay. I haven't done that yet. I haven't gone to one of his events, his live events.
Oh yeah. There's no way I would ever do that. Sorry. No way.
But anyway, he's a guru out there, whatever, but I really do believe in the philosophy. And when the Robbins Madonna Center was started, it was basically, it was started after Tony Robbins had been doing his work for a while, but it was a way to put his approach to I'm not saying this very articulately, but to be able to put it into a strategy, like they made a curriculum out of it. And these are strategies that anybody can learn, that can be taught. What is Tony Robbins doing out there on stage? What are the strategies he's using, and how can this be learned so that you can engage, with clients in that way?
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't say it very well, but yeah.
Well, it's probably a way to help more people, right? Because, you create little, all these coaches out there so that they can take his work, because he's only one person, so he can't help that many people. And it's a way to get that work into more people's lives.
Yeah, and it's more than that, because I think with any life coaching certification or training that anybody could have, and there are thousands of different training programs out there, all with their own unique focus. But yeah, he can't reach everybody. And the thing is, the way he works versus different from the way I work is pretty different. I mean, he's who he is. And any coach with the training and strategic intervention is who they are. And we all work differently, even though we have same skills and strategies we can use. We implement them pretty differently than he does.
Oh, sure.
I mean, he's whatever. I mean, he's very out there. He will get people uncomfortable really quickly, and he'll work them through, a whole process. And even though some of the process is the same with what strategies I use, I come from I come from a place that really doesn't put people into just expose them or whatever right away. I mean, it's a little bit more soft-handed, I guess.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
So.
And, like we all resonate with different people, and we all have our own flavor, the way we do things. And I think that you probably attract the people who need exactly what you offer. So, which brings us to the next question. How can people find you?
Probably the best is through, I am present on social media. So a couple ways. One is my website, which isn't social media, although it connects to my different social media sites. So right now my website is just my first last name, KimRileyCoaching.com.
Okay.
So KIMRILEY coaching.com. That's my website. And on the website are links to my social media platforms, including I have a free Facebook group for midlife women called Women Reigniting Love in Midlife. And that's a free resource for people. So women, there are about 920 women in that group now, and I post in that regularly, and they post in response, and there are different tips and strategies I talk about in there. So
cool. Awesome. And we'll have links to those in the show notes page as well, so that people can find you. And that's awesome. And don't you have I snooped around on your website a while back, and I thought you had some free relationship session or something like that?
Yeah, so what I offer, and others do this too, but what I offer is a free consultation session, initial 60-minute consultation session. I call on my website, I call it a relationship clarity session.
Oh, okay.
It's a phone call or a Skype call where we talk about what are the issues of concern in the relationship, and what are some different tips and things to think about to start with. And then I offer packages to women who decide after that call that they want to work with me. But that consultation call is, as much as I can impart this as possible, it really is not a sales call. Where, at the end, the prospective client, I'm going to be sold into this, I'm going to have to do this. I'm going to be pressured into this, because it's really not that. It really is a clarity call. It's really talking about what are the issues at hand and what can help you get through them and make a plan to move forward from here. And if it makes sense to work with me, great. If it doesn't make sense because we're not a good match, then it doesn't. And I refer women onward. So it's not a pressure call at all. And I do believe, because I've done quite a few of these calls at this point, that women get out of it something valuable in that call itself. They walk away with something in that call itself, even if they don't decide to go further with me in coaching. So it's really not, it really isn't a sales call. I really make it very clear not to pressure.
And you know what? I think that's really cool, because I think so often people are afraid to even take advantage of something like that. But I do something similar, because I really, like you, I'm sure that, like, I do health coaching, that I just want to work with people that really, really, really are ready to move forward and get over what's holding them back. So, but that's why, we provide actionable steps and things that can help them right away. And I'm sure that you've heard this quote, I'm sure, but if you help enough people get what they want, then you will end up getting what you want, It's just a way of getting that karma out there,
Yeah, for sure. Because I mean, my ultimate, vision, or if that's and mission in my work now, is to really help play my role, to play my part, to help women live into the last half of their lives with joy and passion and happiness, really to recreate that partnership with their partner that maybe they once had but's gone now. And we don't have to live any longer in, at best being roommates, right? Where we're with our partner and, we're just sharing the same living space. At best, to, at worst, being at serious risk for infidelity, and for if it hasn't already happened.
Yeah.
We can live so much better than that. And it's just, like I said, at the early part of this interview, it's, our lives are not getting shorter, and there is no time better than right now when you are 50, when you're 60, and knowing that, like, wow, I am in the last half of my life, and it doesn't have to continue in boredom or fear or sadness, depression. It just doesn't have to. It can completely transform, in fact, to the point of being the best it's ever been. I mean, I've been with my husband for 36 years. We've been married for 30 of them. And I'll tell you now, we had this conversation last night. I mean, right now, in the last year or two, and I will say a lot of it is with the relationship coaching training I've been through myself, that these last couple of years are the best years we've had. And it's only getting better, Our kids are grown, and we're still there for them, but now's the time where it's like, let's go.
Are you an empty nester?
Yes, but I qualify it a little bit because my girls are in their 20s, but I have two girls, but they come back now and again, for several months here, for 2 months here. So it's not completely empty nest, but yes, more certainly not here on a daily basis.
I envy that. I'm 2 down, 1 to go. So
one last thing to say too. I mean, I do have the consultation call. That's always a free of charge. But and on my website, there's a link to schedule a call if people want to do that. And I can give you the link to my calendar where people can schedule time. But one additional thing, I thought, well, what more could I offer? If women do decide to work with me, the form that they fill out when they set up their call on my electronic calendar asks them what's their goal. Something to that effect. I can't remember exactly. But if they put in there that, I listened to Tracy's podcast, or acknowledging the podcast, that I would be, if it's a match for us to work together, I would be willing to offer a couple of two free coaching sessions that are also 60-minute sessions. But to offer two sessions at no charge.
Gosh, that is
they can do that.
hyper generous of you, girl. Wow.
Yeah, so they just have to acknowledge that they listen to this through your through your podcast.
Through the show. Awesome. Well, I'll definitely make sure to mention that in the intro so that they grab it right away. So that's really cool. Well, listen, Kim, I just want to thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really loved the value bombs that you dropped on our listeners. There was so many, and I just want to thank you for sharing your wisdom.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It was a fun conversation. I enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you really enjoyed and will apply those tips to your life in the coming week. Make that appointment with your spouse or significant other and notice all of the lovely things in your world every single day. There's so much to be thankful for. The fact that you are alive and born here in the United States is one of them. So if you like the show, please share it with a friend. And always, we love it when you head on over to iTunes and give us a rating and review. This helps more people find the show, and that way we can help more women to age stronger. So go out and make it a great day, you guys. Thanks so much. This podcast contains the opinion and thoughts of its host and guests. It is intended to provide helpful and informative material on the subjects covered. All statements made on the podcast have not been evaluated by the FDA and are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease. If the listener requires professional assistance or advice, please contact your personal medical doctor. Both host and guest specifically disclaim any responsibility for any liability, loss, or risk, personal or otherwise, which is incurred as a consequence directly or indirectly of the use and application of any of the contents of these episodes. Like I said, this is my opinion and I could be wrong.